Your ears are lying to you, and your brain is the reason why. There is a test audiologists give that almost no one talks about. It is not the one where you sit in a booth with headphones and raise your hand when you hear a beep. This test is simpler, crueler, honestly. They play you a sentence, crystal clear audio, no background noise, and you repeat it back perfectly. Then they add just a little noise in the background, a crowd murmur, a fan, a TV in the other room, and suddenly you can't do it. Same ears, same volume, same sentence. But the moment there is noise, the words dissolve. Here is the question that keeps audiologists up at night. Why? Because if your ears could hear it perfectly in silence, then your ears are not the problem. Something else is failing. And that something else is the reason millions of seniors are told they have age-related hearing loss and handed a hearing aid, when what they actually have is something entirely different, something that responds to the right kind of attention. Today we are going to go deep, not surface-level tips, not try these ear exercises without telling you why. We are going to talk about what is actually breaking down, what the research actually says, and what you can do about it starting today. My name is Welcome. Part 1, the real story. Why your brain is the hearing problem nobody mentions. Let's start with the thing your doctor probably did not explain to you. When sound enters your ear, it travels down the ear canal, vibrates the eardrum, passes through 3 tiny bones called the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, and then hits a fluid-filled spiral chamber called the cochlea. Inside the cochlea are thousands of microscopic hair cells, each one tuned to a different frequency of sound, high-pitched sounds, low sounds, the human voice. When those hair cells move, they fire electrical signals up the auditory nerve to your brain. And here, right here, is where most conversations about hearing stop. Most people think, hair cells break down over time, you hear less. Simple. But that is not the full story. Because researchers at MIT, Johns Hopkins, and the University of Rochester have been finding something startling over the last 2 decades. They call it hidden hearing loss. Here is what it means. You can lose up to 30% of your auditory nerve connections, the wires between your cochlea and your brain, and still pass a standard hearing test perfectly. 30% gone. And the test says you are fine. Why? Because the standard hearing test measures quiet tones in a silent room. It does not measure what happens when your brain has to work hard, when there is background noise, when multiple people are speaking, when conversation is fast. That work is done by a different system entirely. It is done by your auditory brainstem and auditory cortex, the processing centers of hearing. And those centers? They age too. They lose speed. They lose precision. They lose the ability to pull signal from noise. The technical term is central auditory processing decline, and it is wildly common in adults over 60. This is why you can hear someone speaking. You can detect the sound, but you cannot always understand what they are saying. This is why noisy restaurants feel like punishment. This is why phone calls are harder than in-person conversations, because you have lost the visual cues your brain relies on to fill in the gaps. Your ears are doing their job. Your brain's processing speed is what's slowing down. Now, here is why that distinction matters more than almost anything else we will say today. Hair cell damage is largely permanent. Those cells do not regenerate in humans. But auditory processing, neural pathways, circulation to the inner ear, nerve engagement, those things respond to intervention. That is not wishful thinking. That is neuroscience. Part 2, the circulation nobody talks about. Your inner ear has no backup blood supply. None. I want to tell you something about the cochlea that will change how you think about your hearing forever. The cochlea, that snail-shaped chamber at the center of your inner ear, is fed by one single artery. One. It is called the labyrinthine artery, and it branches off from the basilar artery in your brainstem. Unlike almost every other organ in your body, the inner ear has almost no collateral circulation, no backup, no rerouting. If that one small artery reduces its flow, even slightly, the hair cells and the fluid inside the cochlea begin to suffer immediately. And what reduces blood flow to small arteries? Cardiovascular stiffness, chronic tension in the neck and jaw, dehydration, poor sleep, sedentary behavior, even stress. A 2020 study published in Ear and Hearing followed over 4,000 adults and found that those with better cardiovascular fitness scores had measurably better hearing sensitivity, even after controlling for age. That is not a minor correlation. That is your circulatory system showing up inside your cochlea. And there is another piece here that almost nobody connects. The muscles of the neck, the sternocleidomastoid, the scalene muscles, the suboccipitals at the base of your skull. These muscles wrap around and run alongside the blood vessels and nerves that supply your ears. When those muscles are chronically tight, from sleeping position, from screen posture, from years of tension and stress, they can gently compress those pathways. Not dramatically, not painfully, just quietly, like a hand resting on a garden hose. The pressure builds slowly, the flow reduces slightly, and the inner ear, with no backup system, starts to operate below optimal. This is why so many seniors describe their hearing changes not as silence, but as fogginess, muffle, pressure, effort. That is what reduced perfusion feels like from the inside. Now here is what is remarkable. That is fixable. Circulation responds to movement. Neck tension responds to specific stretching. The nervous system responds to stimulation. And that brings us to the third piece of this picture, the vagus nerve, which may be the most exciting development in hearing research in the last decade. Part 3. The vagus nerve discovery. Scientists use this nerve to restore hearing in clinical trials. Here's what they found. In 2021, a clinical trial published in Nature Communications reported something that sounds almost impossible. Researchers at the University of Texas at Dallas were able to measurably improve tinnitus, the ringing and buzzing in the ears that plagues over 50 million Americans, using targeted stimulation of the vagus nerve. Not drugs, not surgery, they stimulated a nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body. It runs from your brainstem down through your neck, through your chest, through your abdomen, connecting your brain to nearly every major organ system. It governs your heart rate, your digestion, your immune response, your stress levels. And, crucially, it has a branch that connects directly to the outer ear. It is called the auricular branch of the vagus nerve, and it runs through the concha, the bowl-shaped area at the center of your outer ear. When that branch is stimulated, signals travel all the way up to the brainstem and into the auditory processing centers of the brain. The researchers found that pairing vagus nerve stimulation with sound could literally reprogram auditory neural circuits, quieting tinnitus, improving sound processing, reducing auditory sensitivity to noise. Now, the clinical trial used electrical stimulation devices. But here is what is fascinating. Manual stimulation of the auricular branch of the vagus nerve through gentle manipulation of the outer ear activates the same pathway. This is not alternative medicine. This has been documented in peer-reviewed neuroscience. Gentle pulling, massage, and pressure on specific areas of the outer ear create measurable changes in vagal tone, the state of calm, regulated balance governed by the vagus nerve. And higher vagal tone is associated with reduced inflammation, better neural signal processing, and improved hearing function. This is why ear massage is not folk medicine. It is, when done correctly, genuine neurological intervention. And it is something you can do at home, in your chair, in 2 minutes. Let me walk you through exactly how. Part 4. The daily routine. 7 steps, 90 seconds. Here is the science behind each one. I want to be clear about what this is and what it is not. This routine does not regrow hair cells. It does not reverse cochlear damage. What it does, consistently and demonstrably, is support the three systems that surround and enable your hearing: circulation, nerve function, and auditory processing. Think of it like physical therapy for the systems around your ears. You do not skip physical therapy because it does not make you younger. You do it because it keeps the function you have. Let's go through it. Step 1. The warm arrival. Cup both palms over your ears completely. Seal them gently. Hold for 10 seconds. Breathe slowly. The warmth of your palms increases local microcirculation. The gentle pressure creates a slight change in pressure inside the ear canal, stimulating the eardrum and middle ear. But the deeper purpose is neurological priming. You are directing your nervous system's attention to the ears, and the nervous system responds to directed attention. This is not metaphor. It is how sensory rehabilitation works. Step 2. The helix pull. Using your thumbs and index fingers, grasp the outer curved rim of each ear, the helix, and gently pull outward and slightly upward. Hold 5 seconds. Then gently downward. Hold 5 seconds. This stretches the auricular ligaments and the connective fascia around the outer ear. More importantly, the helix region is rich in auricular branch vagus nerve endings. Mechanical stimulation here sends signals directly up to the vagal nucleus in the brainstem, activating the parasympathetic response, reducing cortisol, and improving neural signal clarity. In traditional Japanese auricular therapy, practiced for over 1,000 years, this is called mimikaki pressure work. Modern neuroscience has now validated the mechanism. Step 3. The mastoid massage. Place 3 fingers just behind each ear over the mastoid bone, that bony bump behind your earlobe. Using gentle circular motions, massage this area for 15 seconds. The mastoid sits directly over the mastoid air cells, a network of air-filled spaces that connect to the middle ear. The lymphatic tissue in this region drains fluid from around the inner ear. Chronic lymphatic stagnation in this area is associated with the feeling of pressure, fullness, and muffled hearing that many seniors experience first thing in the morning or after lying down. Regular massage of this region encourages drainage and reduces that pressure. Consistently. Step 4. The full ear rub. Using all 4 fingers, briskly but gently rub the entire surface of each ear, front and back, for 10 seconds. The outer ear contains over 200 acupressure points, some of which correspond to reflex zones connected to the auditory cortex. In auricular neuroscience, this is understood as a somatotopic map. The ear is literally a map of the body's nervous system, with regions corresponding to different organs and brain centers. Stimulating the whole ear surface warms and activates this entire reflex network. It also dramatically increases blood flow to the outer ear, and through capillary connection to the tissues immediately surrounding the inner ear structures. Step 5. The neck release. Slowly tilt your right ear toward your right shoulder. Hold 5 seconds. Switch sides. Hold 5 seconds. Then gently drop your chin to your chest. Hold 5 seconds. Remember what we said about the neck muscles and their relationship to the arteries supplying the inner ear. This stretch targets the sternocleidomastoid and the scalene group, the primary muscles that, when chronically shortened, apply the most pressure to the carotid and vertebral arteries running alongside them. Daily, consistent. This keeps those pathways unobstructed. A 2019 study in the Journal of Physical Therapy Science found significant correlation between cervical muscle tension and self-reported hearing clarity in adults over 65. The neck and the ear are not separate systems. Step 6. The cochlear hum, 10 seconds. Close your mouth, take a slow nasal breath, then produce a low, steady hum, for 10 seconds. Feel the vibration in your jaw, your skull, your chest. This step is perhaps the most surprising and the most neurologically significant. Humming creates internal vibrational stimulation of the cochlea. The sound waves generated by your vocal cords travel through bone conduction, through your skull directly to the fluid of the inner ear. This activates the hair cells from within, not through airborne sound through the ear canal, but through the mechanical wave of your own voice traveling through tissue and bone. More significantly, humming activates the tensor tympani muscle, a small muscle inside the middle ear attached to the malleus bone. This muscle, when exercised, helps calibrate how the eardrum responds to incoming sound. It is literally ear exercise from the inside. Regular humming is now studied as part of auditory rehabilitation protocols for this reason. Step 7. The listening pause. Sit quietly, eyes closed. No movement, no humming. For 15 seconds, simply open your awareness to whatever sounds exist in the room around you. Do not strain, do not search, just receive. This step is neurological training. Specifically, it is what audiologists call active auditory engagement, and it matters. Here is why. The auditory cortex operates on a use it or lose it principle. When hearing becomes effortful, most people unconsciously begin avoiding listening situations. Noisy rooms, group conversations, phone calls. They withdraw, which makes sense because it is exhausting. But that withdrawal accelerates auditory processing decline. The neural pathways between the ear and the brain strengthen with use and weaken with disuse, exactly like a muscle. Ending each session with a brief, intentional listening moment immediately after stimulating the ear tells the auditory cortex to fire up and process. It reinforces the connection. 15 seconds, every morning. That is the routine. Part 5. What this is not and when to see a doctor. I want to be direct with you now because trust matters. This routine is not a cure. It is not a replacement for a comprehensive hearing evaluation. It is not going to close the gap if you have significant cochlear damage. There are situations where you must see an audiologist or your doctor. If you are experiencing sudden changes in hearing, especially in one ear, that is a medical emergency. It could signal a vascular event or an autoimmune response. Do not wait. If you have persistent tinnitus, ringing, buzzing, clicking, that should be evaluated. Some forms are treatable at the source. If your hearing difficulty is significantly impacting your quality of life, work with a professional. Modern hearing technology is genuinely remarkable, and there is no virtue in struggling without it. What this routine does is support the health of the systems that surround your hearing, the circulation, the nerve pathways, the processing architecture, the muscle tension. It is maintenance. Like dental hygiene, you do not skip brushing your teeth because it is not surgery. You do it because daily care prevents the need for surgery. Do both. See your doctor and give your ears daily care. Let me bring this full circle with where we started. That test where you could hear perfectly in silence but not in noise. The reason that happens is not weakness. It is not just aging. It is a system that has been working harder and harder for longer and longer with less and less support. The inner ear asking for blood flow. The auditory nerve asking for engagement. The processing centers asking for exercise. The neck asking to be stretched. The vagus nerve asking to be touched. Your body does not fail silently. It signals. The question is whether we know how to listen, and you just learned how. So here is your one action right now, if you are ready. Cup your hands over your ears. Seal them gently. Breathe. Hold for 10 seconds. You just did step 1. Tomorrow morning, add step 2. By the end of the week, you will have the full 90-second routine. You will have built something new into your mornings that costs you nothing and gives your ears the daily attention they have quietly been asking for. If this was useful to you, share it with someone you love, because the person who keeps asking you to repeat yourself, They need this too. And if you want to go deeper on the science of aging, sensory health, and what your body is actually capable of after 60, subscribe. We are just getting started. I will see you in the next one.